Gutfeld and Jessica Tarlov regarding non-binary individuals, men and women's sports, and related social and cultural issues. Gutfeld is seen critiquing what he perceives as inconsistencies in Tarlov's stance on different topics. Key points. Gutfeld criticizes Jessica Tarlov for her stance on non-binary individuals and men competing in women's sports. The discussion extends to the acceptance and understanding of the non-binary community, particularly the fluidity of gender identity. The conversation touches on the importance of upholding freedom of speech and the diversity of opinions. Drag queens and queer people are highlighted as integral parts of LGBT history, referencing Deb Haaland's interview with a drag queen. Let's watch together.
The advantage, and they're making a mockery of the movement. There are non-binary individuals
Ridiculing or undermining the non-binary movement.
out there who deserve jobs in tech. But
how dare you? How do you know? Where's your standard, Jessica?
I assume that the tech conference had a standard because he was able to go on stage and say that they lied.
How can you tell if I'm non-binary or not?
Well, I would know because this would be the first day of your non-binary life.
I'm deciding now.
That's not how. This is making a joke out of it.
It should be a joke.
But it isn't a joke.
It is
It isn't a joke to millions of people.
It's hilarious.
It's really not. It's not hilarious.
It's the best.
It's
the best.
I think what happened is the worst. On the Martina Navratilova front.
Negative event involving Martina Navratilova?
And she's been pretty consistent on this issue, also speaking out especially about biological men in women's sports, which I think is where everyone is pretty much unified. But drag queens and queer people are a seminal part of the history of the Stonewall Inn.
The historical significance of drag queens and queer individuals in the LGBTQ movement
and the gay rights movement in this country. And so it actually makes complete sense to me that Deb Haaland was interviewing a drag queen for that. So these are two very different stories, but obviously what went on the tech conference is unacceptable.
You know, Katie.
What are you laughing at?
Because you seem to not mind when men are competing against women in the pool. Why are you mad about tech? Because it affects you?
No, well, I would never get a job in tech.
You don't mind. Now it's in the workforce. Now it bothers you.
I literally said
there's no difference.
Biological men competing in women's sports is where we are all unified. It is unacceptable. I have been consistent. Leah Thomas has no place on that team. Women shouldn't be losing scholarships to these guys. That's somewhere where we all can come together on this. But that's not every issue that affects people in the trans or non-binary community.
The non-binary community. Okay, I'd love to know more about that, Jessica. What defines non-binary community? Somebody deciding one day that they're going to be this gender or
definition and process of identifying as non-binary?
That gender. Why should you be the arbiter of that? Why do I have to agree with that? I'm just curious.
That's the beauty of this First Amendment show.
Emphasizing voice and diversity of perspectives?
Then they are amplifying and exaggerating the fact that there is no standard, and that's brilliant.
Gutfeld seems to be expressing a mix of frustration and amusement. He believes that inconsistencies in how we handle gender and sports can sometimes seem contradictory. On the other side, Jessica Tarlov appears passionate and determined to uphold the integrity of movements like non-binary rights and gender equality in sports. Conversations about gender, identity, and fairness in sports are indeed making headlines. It's a conversation that sparks debates not just among public figures, but also in the broader society. People are genuinely concerned about the impact of these discussions on various communities. It's evident that both sides feel strongly about their beliefs. Greg is emphasizing the need for clear standards and consistency, while Jessica is stressing the importance of respecting diverse identities and the historical context of the LGBTQ movement. So, they're talking about how important it is to respect non-binary individuals and ensure they have equal job opportunities. But then, there's a disagreement on how people define being non-binary and how some situations might be seen as a joke or not. It's a serious matter, especially in the context of sports, where they talk about men competing in women's categories. In addition, there are references to historical significance such as Stonewall Inn and drag queen, indicating how influential various identities have been in our society. Overall, I think that if we understand and respect gender identity and its implications in various aspects of life, from jobs to sports, on the other hand, men's sports, women's sports, and other gender-based transgender sports should exist. For fairness and neutrality because men and women are clearly physically different.